It's episode 35 of season 5, Whole Lot of Wolves. I'm your host, Paul LePage, whilst Josh is busy getting ready to plan his trip to Wolverhampton for this coming weekend for the Leicester match. More on that a little later. We've got Alex producing in New York.
Hey, guys.
Danny on the socials.
Hey.
Returning, representing Atlanta Wolves, it's Kurt Zellner. Hi, Kurt.
Hey, how's it going?
It is going well. 5 of the best and all of that. So, on to yesterday's game. Manchester United 0. Wolverhampton Wanderers 1. And the streak continues. So, as we start the breakdown of the game, we're going to start with just taking a look at that starting 11 because there were some changes from that stability that we've enjoyed these past few weeks. Doc was only fit for the bench, so it was Santi Bueno that got the nod in the back three, and with Bellegarde out completely, it was Cunha who came back in for the start. Not only that, there was a surprise as well in the goalkeeping department, as Jose Sarr was either hurt or ill during the warm-up. So that meant a quick turnaround and a start for Dan Bentley, who would have been on the bench. So that may have caused a little disruption. But Kurt, initially, what were your thoughts on that starting 11?
Yeah, so I was quite nervous on that starting 11. I think all of us have seen the keeper issues when you've not had Sa. It's sort of been a mess. So sad to see Sa go down, sort of expected the worst. But at the same time, this late in the season, I sort of felt like it was good to see someone else back there just to see how it goes. And actually, Bentley was the right choice. The bizarre thing with that starting 11 is not to see Sam Johnson on the bench. So really wonder about that. And then Cunha, even though he's had his negative flashes, I thought he did deserve the start still. So everything said and done. Nervous about the defense with Santi Bueno back there and not having Saab, but probably at this point in the fixtures, you're probably okay with it.
So you could argue we were the better team for the first 20 minutes, but there was no real threat from either side. And if it was the threat coming from United, it was more from set pieces, really, that seemed to look to target Bentley and put pressure on him. So, Danny, just how much better organised are we now looking at the back, regardless of who's between the sticks even?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically night and day, as they say. Our defense in general has been, completely turned around since November. And I had a friend over watching the game, and he was remarking that, we don't really concede from set pieces anymore. I'm sure someone will remember the odd one under Vitor, but it hasn't been very common. I thought Bentley looked a little bit, maybe, not match sharp might be the term, especially on a couple of the early corners. He was, punching it away from basically standing on his line, which is a little bit too close to the ball being in for comfort. But he dealt with them. And after that, never really felt much pressure from them. And I have to stick in here that I found it pretty ironic that Rob Jones was seeming to try to give United every possible chance to score from a set piece or corner because United didn't look like scoring in any other way.
And that was pretty much the pattern all the way through to the break, halftime, at the interval. Into the second half, you can probably count on one hand the amount of times that this has happened since his arrival. But Agbadou was proved to be human after all. He was wonderfully turned by Højlund. You got to give him that. But when he was bearing down on goal, it was Toti Gomez that came to the rescue. So how good has Toti been in this run, Alex?
Yeah, he's been excellent. I think you can make a case that he was one of the best players on the pitch. And in this game in particular, I thought he looked especially assured. And, that might be a combination of some of the things that everybody had said, that United didn't really look like scoring at any point in this game. That was their one big chance. And for him to, uses athleticism to hustle down the pitch and make a clean tackle in the box. When how many times do we see something like that result in a penalty, and then we're looking at a 1-1 or a disappointing 1-0 where Wolves lose on a controversial pen? But it was a clean tackle. I think it can't be understated enough just how the culmination, like the combination of Agbadou in the center and Totti being healthy again, Ait-Nouri seemingly having more defensive discipline. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but I seem to remember a time or two where he was actually there at the back post when United was looking to cross the ball to the back post, and he headed it away or handled it nicely. So Totti's a huge part of it, but I think it's all the factors. The fact that you have consistency at the back, save for Santi Bueno coming in for Doc because of the knock, I think certainly makes him feel good. This is also the one moment I can talk about this. I've been doing this funky thing that's really, really, I feel like people should jump on board with. So Totti Gomez is always the absolute longest odds on most betting apps to score a goal. And I just tend to think that in sports, like when a guy plays this well for this long, there's going to be a moment this season where he like gets to celebrate. Like I could just see him celebrating a goal off of a corner. And 2 games ago, they were aiming for him on a corner every single time. And I think he had like 2 shots on target. So, for those, I know Josh is going to laugh as he listens to this because I'm always talking bets, but he's like plus 25,000 every single game to score a goal. And I feel like he's one of our best corner threats.
Very much so. I think it's like what's going to come first, that goal from Totti from a corner or anyone in the back line, or is it going to be that penalty? What's going to happen first?
I have no hope of us getting a penalty in the last 5 games. It's just I don't know. We don't even have like penalty shouts anymore. It's clearly not just an officiating thing. It's also the way that we play. I can't remember the last time that like a player of ours went down under contact in the box and we weren't given it. Well, like when's the last time we even talked about that on a podcast?
I think it goes untalked about because of how negative it was. But that one on Bellegarde, West Ham away,
absolutely,
was an absolute shocker. No, it wouldn't have made any difference in the grand scheme of things, but just, yeah, that sticks out for me, definitely.
It could be just how Jurgen Strand-Larsen plays the game. He just doesn't advance the ball much. I actually can't stand him, so I'm probably in the minority at that. But he turns the ball over quite a bit for how often he touches it. And then I don't think, because he doesn't try to progress the ball forward, instead shoots it more often, I think it doesn't set you up well to even get penalties. So I think it's Molineux who has the biggest chance of actually getting a penalty for us because of the way that Jurgen Strand-Larsen plays.
I think there's an element of that. You could probably drill down into the stats to look even now how many touches that we have in the opposition box, certainly compared to those teams in the top half of the table, because that's what it comes down to. It's just pressuring the opponent and either crafting an opportunity or getting fouled, and it happens that the foul is in the box and it's a pen. So I'm probably inclined to say that we're still not the most active in and around the opposition box, but on the flip side, it does seem that when we do get those chances, we put them away. So maybe it evens itself out a little bit.
Are you trying to insinuate that Wolves just score too much from outside of the box? Because we've been spoiled with some of the goals that we've seen this season. So, like, if we're just going to score worldies all the time from distance, it's kind of a fun way to make up for the lack of penalties that we ever get.
I think they said that on the commentary stream yesterday, didn't they? It was our 10th goal from outside the box.
It's crazy. I would wonder like how many free kicks from just near the edge of the box we've been awarded. That'd be a fun thing to know as well, because I do feel like there's been a few where I'm waiting for the free kick and I'm like, this is well within range. Obviously the obvious one being this week, but I feel like we've seen quite a few of those this season actually.
So let's come on to that then. It was a changes on the 74th minute. Rodrigo Gomez came in for Semedo, and it was Sarabia for Strand Larsen, and it was Cunha coming probably more centrally from that point. Interestingly, taking the captain's armband as well, which is a talking point. And it was one of the real moments that Cunha had really set the stage for the winner, because he drew that free kick on the edge of the box, really ideal position for a free kick to get it up and down and really test the keeper. So it was Sarabia who stepped up, left foot, Neves-esque top corner that gave Onana no chance. Kurt, did that really put the cherry on the top of the cake in what you'd say was a perfect smash and grab victory?
Yeah, Sarabia has been sort of the bench assassin. When he subs in, I mean, I think it started with that Spurs match, but now every time he comes on, I expect him to do something crazy. Yet when he starts the match on the pitch, it really isn't that. So he's been this super sub, but he hasn't provided much when he starts the match in the starting 11. So the problem is, I really just felt like we were going back to, I think it was like February of last year, where we made this amazing comeback against Man U, and then the rest is history. They came back with Manu coming on, and just with that just heartbreaking ending. So the rest of the match, I sort of felt like I was on pins and needles that we would give up an easy goal. So exciting, but more nerve-wracking than anything after that.
Yeah, it was also, again, a testament to how defensively solid we've been. That I won't say that I wasn't nervous during that time. I was very nervous, but it's just like, it was like clockwork under Gary O'Neill, and even under Lopetegui in parts, where you'd give up a goal, especially like if you were hanging on to a 1-0, you'd give up one, you'd know that next one was coming immediately. And I didn't really have those same fears. I think it's interesting that I saw someone point out shortly after the match that, part of why Sarabia might be finding some success is that defensive solidity and also the midfield, which is really clicking now too under Vitor Pereira, that you have this solid base and a lot of very physical players, even, Marshall Monetsi, despite his how he lacks in other departments perhaps, but there's a lot of physical players that Sarabia is sort of around, and it might give him half a second more when he receives the ball. So that can be a big part of it too. I mean, I think a lot of us have agreed that, he's better coming off the bench, often because he is sort of coming in to a team that's settled into the game, and he can sort of just add a little bit of incisiveness. But yeah, an interesting way in which the system overall, or the way that Vitor's, transformed the mentality, might be helping, this one bench player.
Sarabia reminds me a lot of just a really good relief pitcher. And like, it's like, if he's on the pitch too early, that's usually bad news. But if he's coming on in like the 70th minute or like the 8th inning, like, you have a lot of confidence that his purpose is going to be well served, and that he's going to like get you the result that you want to get. So I like that about him. I really do. And I think you're right. It's just that it's like the first 7 innings have gone so well that we've gotten to this point where like he's going to get his ideal amount of pitches and outs that we want from him every single time. That's what he reminds me of.
Someone's going to come up with a no stupid question based on that theme, either tonight or they'll chew on it for next week, regarding positional players in baseball and Wolves something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to be in the right position for it. I also, you said Neves-esque, and you're going back at least far enough for it, because the last time we scored directly from a free kick, I don't know if anybody remembers which one that was.
Wow.
Well, it depends, I suppose, on how you define it.
It can't be.
Go for it, Alex.
Well, the way you said that makes me think it's the Villa deflection, but that was a really long time ago. It can't be then.
Well, Get ready to believe, because that was the last goal that came from a free kick. The last one that properly went in, I believe, is the João Moutinho at Bournemouth, which was like sort of, it was very near the corner, but it was a foul that got committed outside the box. Yeah.
Wow.
Not that we should be relying on specialists who can score directly from free kicks, but it is just one way in which, we've talked so much, and we will probably continue to talk even in this episode about, Cunha and our reliance on him and whatever. But it's just like you lose these little bits, midfielders scoring, people scoring from free kicks, scoring off of corner kicks, even if that's in the sort of the second phase of a corner kick, like Ait Nouri against Spurs, and it's just like you're naturally going to have to ask someone to come up with those goals somewhere. And we've had Cunha. So Vitor needs to transition, not just to, a style of play that doesn't feed Cunha constantly, but also we need to be finding goals from other places.
So ultimately, that was 5 wins out of 5 now. Catchability as high as 13th in the table. Top of the form table. Safety secured. Only behind Paris Saint-Germain in form across the top European leagues even. And more points and then points for Vitor, who said in his presser that he was too tired to go for a beer. But that's the type of excuse that I typically give my wife, and then I popped for a cheeky one in town afterwards as well. So he did rock up in the Wetherspoons in Wolverhampton. So all good things that came from that win at Old Trafford yesterday. So guys, if we were to put I'll give it you two options here for man of the match yesterday. Are you going to give it to an individual, or would you give it to a positional unit? I'll go with you first, Alex.
I think I would give it to Totti, based on yesterday. I just think he was really solid and, arguably saved the game in the one moment that Agbadou looked human. So thanks for that.
Next, Kurt.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a bizarre pick, but I think Dan Bentley, because he was able to step in, I think he only had one real save. He caught one that was maybe a shot or maybe a deflection sort of kick pass. But I think he was able to remain poised. He really did a good job. And probably you give it to Sarabia. I think Bentley deserves some credit.
Finally to you, Danny.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have the off the wall pick. I'm going to go Bentley too. I think that there are other players who probably contributed more to the win, in an attacking sense. And I think our defense shielded him very well. But at the same time, I think it's really underappreciated. We don't think about Dan Bentley at all, pretty much. And he's had a rough season. I'm sure we'll talk at a later episode when we're recapping the season about Sam Johnstone's incoming, but that, affects him in a weird way, drops down to third choice through no fault of his own. And it also means that when we had those cup games, Bentley was not getting time. So he's coming in cold. And to do that at Old Trafford and get a clean sheet, that's going to be a massive day for him regardless. So there might be more deserving players in the 11, but I give it to Dan Bentley.
So that was yesterday's victory. Up next, we look ahead to Saturday, Wolves versus Leicester City at Molineux. It will be a 10 a.m. Eastern kickoff, 9 a.m. Central, and 3 p.m. GMT for Josh, who'll be watching live from the North Bank. So along with our safety confirmed over the weekend, it was also the nail in the coffin for Leicester City. So possibly somewhat on the beach come Saturday. But guys, do you think now with Vitor, the run that we're on, the the mindset, the organization that he's kind of put in place and is crafted. Are we going from strength to strength here, or do you think we'll start to be making it a little bit easier on the opponents with these next few games?
Yeah, I don't know. I think first of all, I thought it was interesting having Bellegarde be injured for this one, because it really gave Vitor a really nice out. You know, I think he's handled these situations really well with Cunha and with others. You know, dealing with squad issues. But I think he also got pretty lucky in the last couple of weeks that it was just it was all kind of perfectly set up for him to bring in Cunha partway through the last game. And now, you know, he has a little injury and he gets to just slot him in, and no one has to think too hard about the politics of it. And we just, you know, slide back to normal. But now I think this game against United was kind of the last game. I mean, we were already, as I've said for a long time, you know, like 99% safe. But I think that like this was sort of the last week where he could even remotely talk about that in a press conference. Oh no, I'm still thinking about staying up, whatever. So it's going to be interesting to see what he does, especially at home against a team that is, you know, known to be very weak and has just been relegated. He sort of can do whatever he wants. I suspect he probably won't do a ton of changes. He's not going to completely upset the apple cart. Like if he thinks that I'd rather be playing in 11 than I could play in August, I just don't think he's going to like suddenly drop Cunha from the squad or something just because he knows he's on his way out or something. But it'll be interesting to see how he handles that extra challenge.
Alex, do you see many changes or tweaks to the starting 11 on Saturday?
Yeah, I don't think we'll see changes for the sake of changes. I guess if fitness levels are in question for anyone, I think that's where we would see it. But I still think even with the lack of quality of the opponent, them possibly, you know, being checked out now that their battle to survive is officially over, there's where the Wolves are in the table right now. There's positions to be had. You know, there's like they could theoretically climb 2 spots on the table if they win and other things go their way. They don't even have to win to do that. They're even on points with Manchester United and with Everton. There's a little bit of a gap between that cluster and Palace in 12th. So, you know, every position matters. I also think that like when you have a streak going, there's just kind of like this temptation to keep that alive. Like if they were to, you know, whenever they lose again, if they ever lose again, who knows? It might be the best team in the world.
What does it even feel like?
Yeah, exactly. Whenever they suffer their first loss since February, I think then maybe like we can reassess, look at the table and take our foot off the gas. But it's really tempting to just keep this thing going and push for a 6th win in a row. Because, you know, it could mean 2 positions in the table, which it would be tremendous. You know, like, could you imagine 13th after 9 points under Gary O'Neill when Vitor took over? Like, I think he would take a ton of pride in that.
Yeah. And another aspect of that, like you were saying, is, you know, he's now known to be in talks or will shortly be in talks about a new contract. And if he can walk into Matt Hobbs or Jeff Shee's office and say, look at this table, look at us above Man United and Spurs, whatever place it is. I think like even just that, it's symbolic, but it's a big bargaining chip for him. So even in a cynical sense, you know, he will want to get the most out of these games that he possibly can.
I think he can say that in such a way that many, certainly Wolves fans, would look at it and say, well, would you rather have Ange in charge or Amorim, like, or would you rather have Vitor now? And you'd look at both of those and think, oh, I'm not kind of sure. I think I'd rather have Vitor. So that just goes to really enhance that argument. I think for him to certainly take a lot of credit for what he's done and really give him all the stakes to play at the table if it is coming around for that contract decision. Kurt, any changes on your side with that starting 11?
No, I think, unfortunately, I think the dream scenario would be to have a lot of young guys who are really going to be plug and play, but I just don't think we have that in the squad. Not to say we don't have a strong squad, but there aren't any guys on the youth side where I feel like you do us a lot of benefit to play them over trying to move up the table. And I don't know if we've ever had a 6-match winning streak in the Premier League. So I think there's enough reason to try to win now and try to, again, prove for Vitor that this isn't the new manager bounce, that he continues to find success. And I think if you can do that versus a team that you should be able to beat, I think all the more. I also think, I hate to give Jeff Shee any credit, but you look who Leicester hired, and I think their managerial appointment was sort of borderline terrible. They were in the same position as us, and they needed someone who's more crisis management focused, and they got someone who had managed at PSV, and while a big name in Premier League history and stuff, just someone who wasn't ready for the Premier League from a managerial standpoint, and especially to replace Steve Cooper. With Ruud van Nistelrooy, it just seemed like a disaster waiting to happen, and it played out exactly like that.
They brought in the guy from PSV, and they didn't even sign Fabio Silva to play for him. What were they thinking? I just looked, and Rodrigo Gomez started the reverse fixture. I don't remember what injury Aït-Nouri had, or maybe something else, but he wasn't even on the bench. So Rodrigo Gomez played that game, and I seem to remember he did very well. He had a goal, which was, their goalkeeper had a complete nightmare that day, but still scored a goal. He's one I'd like to see a lot more of, especially in this game. I think, Leicester are going to be there for the taking, especially for, someone with pace like him. It'd be nice to see him. I don't think necessarily we will see him from the start, but who knows?
Do you guys think, Paul, I mean, I guess it's like kind of, it's written, the writing's on the wall with Semedo being gone at the end of this season, right? Is Rodrigo our right wing back, like next on the depth chart? Like, it doesn't seem like Lima can get a lot of minutes, and I know that Lima could be the backup right wing back next season under Rodrigo Gomez, and he's still very, very young. Like, he's probably a long way from being ready to start. But are we grooming Rodrigo to fully be the next right wing back for Wolves? And is that good if that's the case?
I think it was probably a reflection yesterday that he came on in that position, and it was Semedo that was subbed. So whether that was a game management decision, in that something like they were looking at the stats or his GPS tracking or whatever he was, and he was maxed out and close to an injury or whatever, that really forced their hand to bring Gomez on. I thought was quite telling, because they still had Doc available, who in theory says that he's not cut out to be that marauding wing back anymore, but he could still have come on and locked it down effectively from that side. So it could well be that his position, Rodrigo, could be as that wing back, but now we've got such a more solid base of those three centre backs with Agbadou, Totti, and then either Mosquera or AN other on that right hand side, that if they're that solid, you can be a little more attacking on the right hand flank. So I think as it stands, I'm probably in the camp that I want Semedo to stay, but I still think it's like 75% sure he's gone based on a myriad of factors. And if that's the case, and Rodrigo starting with the right defensive unit set up alongside him, I'd be quite confident and actually look forward to it. So let's take a look at our predictions. So from the weekend, it was we had Josh went with the draw, so nothing there. I was kicking Rodrigo myself with that breakaway chance because I had 2-0, and that was such a first time square ball across the Sarabia towards the end when he was unmarked for 2-0. I was kicking one of the many cats that roam our house when we fluffed that one. So I got the point for the win, missed out on the 2-0. Point for Alex with the win. Danny went for the draw, so nothing there. Greg, who guested last week, he was the point for the guest spot as well with a 2-1 win. So, Kurt, we will go to you for the guest spot this week. Wolves versus Leicester on Saturday. What will be the scoreline?
Probably 3-1 for the good guys. As much as I hate Jurgen Strand-Larsen, and I don't think he's as good as the number of goals he provides, I think he'll score 2. But only because he's in the right spot, not because he did anything himself.
I'm going counterclockwise on the screen. So, Danny.
We're really going to have you back on and explain this hatred, but also backing him to score a brace. It's funny. You also stole my prediction. I'm also going to go 3-1 because I can just see it. Jamie Vardy is going to score the first goal and howl at the Wolves fans. But also, I think Leicester are terrible, so I think we still win.
Alex?
I'm going to go 2-0 Wolves and say that I think Vitor will challenge them to keep a clean sheet at home and have them of the mentality that JB Vardy's dark magic and shithousery aside, Leicester are not good enough to be scoring on Wolves at present with their defensive solidity. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'll say 2-0.
I think I'm going for the Wolves victory as well, but I'm trying to rein it in a little by how many it's going to be. So I think I'm going to go for another double and repeat the scoreline from the away fixture. I'll go Wolves 3, Leicester 0.
No Stupid Questions is brought to you by Esfuerzo Wines. Located just north of Santa Barbara, California, Esfuerzo Wines showcases passion and 3 generations of winemaking in every bottle. Whether you're toasting some Vino de Vitor or winding down after a day of work, let Esfuerzo Wines transport you to the heart of wine country with each sip. Now at esfuerzowines.com, you can use the promo code VITOR, that's VITOR, at checkout to receive a 30% discount off your order. And don't forget to try the special edition 1-pack wines to show your passion and support for Wolves with each glass. This message is intended for those of legal drinking age. Do not drink and drive. Excessive alcohol consumption may be harmful to your health. If you or someone you know is struggling with alcohol abuse, please seek help. Esfuerzo Wines reminds you to enjoy their product responsibly and in moderation.
No Stupid Questions, our favorite part of the show. Brought to you by our friends at Esfuerzo Wines. It was Easter weekend here, and it was also Greek Easter. They fell on the same weekend, so I am embarrassed to say how many bottles of wine were taken down in my household yesterday on Sunday, but not embarrassed to say that one of them was the rosé from our friends at Esfuerzo Wines. It was delicious, perfect spring wine, perfect summer wine. All their wines are great. Go to esfuerzowines.com. And as you heard there, use the promo code VITOR. And you need something for the celebrations that are inevitable each weekend here. We're getting spoiled with things to celebrate. All right. It's the part of the show where you, the listener, get to ask us anything as it relates to Wolves. There's a number of ways that you can do so. You can do so on X at WLWpod is the show's handle. You can email us hello@wholelotofwolves.com. That is our email address. For those watching live on the stream on YouTube or via Facebook, you could always throw a question in the chat there as well. So let's start with actually a question from last week's guest, Greg Ellis at Greg Ellis Comedy. With Premier League football assured next season, no midweek European games, where can Wolves reasonably see themselves finishing?
Well, I suppose we need to consult the catchability chart. I guess the most relevant teams are West Ham on 36 points, Spurs on 37, Wolves, United, and Everton in that order in 38 in ascending order with goal difference. And then technically still possible Crystal Palace in 12th. But yeah, that's where it gets exceedingly unlikely. So Wolves are currently sitting at 38 points. And there's just 5 games left to play. So maximum of 15 to play for. And those matches are, of course, Leicester at home. Oh, sorry. Leicester at home. And then we do Man City away, Brighton at home, Palace away, and Brentford at home to finish the season.
Where are you pegging us?
I mean, so my hope is entirely based on just I want to finish above United and Spurs.
Yeah.
I don't really care where that winds up. If we end up just 15th, just above them, that's perfectly fine with me. And I think that that's probably not far away from it. I think that I'm not going to read out all the fixtures for all the other teams, but I think that there are easily points that Everton can pick up. So I think they will still be, getting wins here and there. I assume that Vitor will not go on a 10-game winning streak to end the season. So I assume that at some point we'll lose a game. I think it puts us probably in the middle of the pack. And as long as United and Spurs are the two below us, then I'll take it.
Yeah, that would be very satisfying. Kurt, where do you think Wolves will finish right now? Sitting in obviously joint on points with Everton United, but in 15th on goal difference with United going to Bournemouth next weekend and Spurs going to Anfield, where Liverpool could clinch the league title after losing to Nottingham Forest, by the way, today as we record this on a Monday.
Yeah, they think for us, it's probably gets a little tougher than we've seen over the last few fixtures. So I think it's realistic to say, hey, we're not going to keep up this amount of scoring and sort of positive performance. But I think it's reasonable to say 14th, 15th is for the taking. And if I think there's this weird sort of mentality that Vitor Mortis might say, hey, look, I really want to secure a nice contract, so I'm going to go all out through the end of the season. And some other teams might not have that same mentality. So he may be sort of hard-pressed not to keep pushing and not play the young guys. And then there's also this mentality of he might say, look, if Semedo's gone, if Cunha's gone, maybe even Guedes sees the pitch just as a sort of a nudge from Jeff to say, hey, if we're going to move him, he needs to see some playing time. So it may be a weird scenario where we go all out over the last couple matches just to try to maybe give guys a little bit more playing time to sell them. And you're not as worried about them getting injured. So the dream would be somehow steal 12th. I don't know if that's even realistic, but if I'm being realistic, probably 14th or 15th.
Yep. Paul, do you have? Are you dreaming big? Do you think we could crack the top dozen of the table?
I'm dreaming big, but not that big. I'll settle for a lofty 13th.
Yeah,
and I just think with the with like what Spurs and Man United are going to be looking to do with their squads ahead of the Europa fixtures and things like that, there's enough moving parts to give us those opportunities, I think. And even the teams that we play in, I'm only really looking away at Man City with any type of like mortal fear, but even they're not the team this season that they have been in the past. So who knows that if we came away from there with a point, that'd be phenomenal. So I think we can look at the end of the season quite brightly. And maybe if it starts to peter out, he's looking at those maybe last 3 or 2 games, that's the chance for some of the rotation for starts. So the likes of Gomez, maybe see Wang come back in and things like that. So I think right now he's going to be playing for the points. If for whatever reason it doesn't come off in the next 2 or 3 games, we might see some fresh faces to close it out.
Yeah, just a little side note on this. The really exciting one to watch, of course, is that Ipswich are still not technically relegated, and that's because they are exactly 15 points behind West Ham. So they can just equal them with the remaining 5 games, and they have to overturn a 20 goal difference. And final game of the season for them is West Ham playing at Ipswich. So that would be an all-time great escape. I don't have any faith that Ipswich will win, really even one of their games. But if they did do that, and West Ham have been playing terribly, I will be seated for that.
Yeah, that would be excellent. I'm going to go for 14th and say that we accomplish something that Danny and probably all of us are dreaming of, and finishing above Spurs and United. Paul mentioned they have European fixtures to worry about, and United in particular is a team we haven't jumped, and they have Athletic Club, which is not an easy fixture. And if you look at their league fixtures, we don't have to list all of them off. I would venture to guess the only one where they're not an underdog is when they're home against West Ham. Otherwise, they're going to be tipped to probably lose or draw at best most of those games. I mean, They're at Brentford, who's still kind of possibly vying for 8th, which is likely going to be a European spot. And for them, the Conference League would be a huge accomplishment. They're away to Chelsea. The last 2 fixtures are away to Chelsea and home against Villa, who are both battling for Champions League places, and likely still will be, because of how tight things are. It's the only interesting part of the league table by the end of the season. So there's a chance United might not win a game again. which is really crazy. And the last time they won a game in the league was a little over a month ago in mid-March over Leicester. And then before that, their previous league win was in February against Ipswich. So they really have not beaten anyone other than relegated teams. It's I mean, I understand they got by Lyon and technically won a game, but that was a ridiculous one-off. So league fixtures, that is. Pretty insane. All right, let's go to Drew Freakin on X. Second Fabio Silva mention of the podcast. Will Wolves get half the return of what they paid for Fabio Silva if you combine the sales of Fabio and Gonzalo Guedes? For context, 35 million pounds in total. So you're looking at what would be an average of 17 and a half if they were both going for that. Paul, what do you think about trying to recoup 30 plus million by the sale of those 2 guys? I took that to be player.
I took that to be will we get half of the 35 million that we paid by selling both of Fabio and Gonzalo Guedes? So can we get 17.5 million?
Yes. Okay. Right.
Out of the sales of both.
Yeah, I think that is exactly what it means. Yeah. So, what do you guys think? Paul, is that too much to ask for a very informed young striker scoring in La Liga?
I think we could do more than that, I think. And as I was looking at it, I'm looking at Fabio right now, maybe in the 20 mil bracket. Maybe 22, maybe 25, with some enhancements in there, with some bonuses based on performances and what have you. And I think they'd absolutely snap their hand off for that and breathe a huge sigh of relief that they haven't totally messed that 35 million wonder kid type signing up. And really that's only been done by the loan market. It's not really been done through our nurturing or enhancement or anything like that. So I think they'd run away like criminals with the loot if they got that. I think the kicker for me here, and he'd even talk of attitude over the weekend is Guedes, and we'll be nowhere near to recouping the outlay that we paid for him. I think we'd really struggle to be in the 10, maybe 12 million at the very most bracket for Guedes, just based on the body of work. Again, not only here for Wolves, but even on his loan moves. They've not really set the world on light or created any buzz around his name that may thought that, he's had a really good loan and set himself up for a move. So I think that's going to be the kicker when we're looking at this total amount for the pair of them.
Yeah. It's going to be hard to get to half of that. But if they did, let's just say generously 17.5 plus Cunha at minimum, the release clause, that's a nice return on a bunch of players who were not very integral to Wolves' winning streak. I guess strength of schedule was pretty integral to the winning streak, but I would argue Vitor and everybody else who were actually playing up until last weekend were, the real drivers there. All right. I'm going to go to Kurt on this one because it's a JSL question, Jurgen Strand Larsen, and it comes from Stone Cold Strand Larsen, aka Nothing But Neto on X. Who's a more valuable player, Strand Larsen linking the forward player, Agbadou keeping the defense strong and orderly? Who is more responsible for our recent run of form and whose absence would be felt more strongly? So, Kurt, what do you think? MVP of this run, if you had to choose between Strand Larsen, who keeps scoring, or Agbadou?
I think you have to put it in the context of Craig Dawson and where we came from on the defense. And for that reason, I think it's Agbadou. It's not particularly close. Jurgen Strand Larsen has done a lot, but Strand Larsen, I feel like him being in the right spot, it reminded me of some of those goals, not to downplay some of his positioning, but some of those goals that Hwang used to get, where it was less of him being a star and more of him being in the right spot. So I think it's Agbadou, but I still think you need, on both ends, I think you need some more depth. So we've been lucky. We haven't had an injury to Strand Larsen, and we haven't had an injury to Agbadou because I think, or Totti, because we are remarkably thin, and even based off the fact we mentioned Fabio and Guedes and people who haven't worked out, I think we need to start thinking more about when these players don't click, it's about selling them quickly and then filling in with either youth or someone who's more of a veteran presence that can just plug and play, but doesn't need a lot of minutes. But Agbadou, just given what we saw from Craig Dawson from earlier in the year.
Yeah. Any disagreements with Agbadou over Strand Larsen?
No, not really. I mean, I think we've sort of said it all before. I like Strand Larsen a decent amount, and I think he's been great the last several games. But I think that it's partly, the way Vitor has, gotten us playing has just spread out the responsibility in a very normal and wise way to have other people be threats too. So maybe a bit to Kurt's point, if Strand Larsen wasn't there, I think, we'd have someone else who might be a little bit less effective. I mean, Strand Larsen's accuracy, his likelihood to score a goal from a shot is quite insane, but we'd still have someone popping up there, but there's not really a way that you can replace the sort of leadership with the way that Agbadou plays. I know some people have mentioned worrying that we might keep a hold of him, and I think that it's really just the fact that he's not particularly young. He's not old either, but he's going to turn 28 this summer. That, if he was a 25-year-old center back was playing this way, I'd say we're not keeping him this summer. That's how good he's been.
Yeah, that's funny. We were talking about Agbadou, a friend of mine this weekend, a Wolves friend, and I was saying I almost like how old he is because of that, because I feel like there's not going to be much buzz around him leaving the club once the rest of the world, realizes how good he is. I don't understand how he has been, in Ligue 1 as long as he was, but Hey, that's pretty great. I will add one thing. If I were, I agree that it's Agbadou, but if I were to build a counter argument for Larson being more valuable during this run, I would build it around the fact that if Wolves defense, it's probably easier to be like a driver of Wolves defensive stability when João Gomez and Andre are playing in front of you in the form that they're in, and Toti's playing next to you in the form that he's in, than it is to kind of like suddenly go on a goal scoring run and be like pulling Marshall Munetzi. And Bellegarde's been great, but like a forward line that is very makeshift of players who are not natural forward wingers or players really in general. So I think we do have to credit Larson for that a little bit, because without those goals, I mean, we might just be getting draws instead. Wolves would still be safe, but I don't know if we'd be flying as high as we are right now, with multiple victories in a row. All right, let's keep it moving and go to Chase Branch, who hit us on Facebook on the Wolves USA Facebook page and asks, should Wolves offer Vitor a new long-term contract, or should recent history with the Gary O'Neill extension and Vitor's tumultuous exits from other teams make them more cautious, even if it leads to another team making overtures based on his Premier League success with Wolves? Paul, you have the most historical context with Wolves managerial decisions of any of us. How do you think we handle Vitor this summer?
That O'Neill one is the real kicker, I think, because when like hindsight's a wonderful thing, and everyone was cheering it at that point, but when you really start to peel back that onion, and it's like, where did it really start to unravel? If you really took it back to that Coventry game and onwards from that point, that was a run of form that really shouldn't have warranted that contract extension, and certainly given that he was in a pretty solid one to begin with, certainly for tenure, probably not so much as far as pay goes, but he was certainly had that stability. So I think the only difference for me as far as that goes is just that period, in that you could kind of tell with Vitor's appointment that if it didn't go right, there was an easier out for the club. It wasn't multiple years. You're probably guessing that it wasn't. It's not a wage that would be really up there in terms of high profile, high caliber manager. So it is one that is seemed more stacked in the club's favor. Now, recency bias, do you put all of that to one side and just say what he's done with the team that he's got? And again, kicking the nuts to Gary O'Neill, but he was throwing that team under the bus pretty much every week when that all started to unravel. And Vitor's done that obviously with a couple of additions, but by and large, the core were the same core that started the year. So that factors into it. And I want to talk about this at length. I kind of want to enjoy the end of the season after it being so shit for large parts. But it really just comes down to what Fosun's got in mind. If they back him, then back him with players and give him a contract to match. Even not back him with players, just reinvest the funds that they're going to in the right way. Have a solid recruitment plan right from the get-go. It's everything that Fosun have never done. So I might be just asking for the impossible. But if in a perfect world, if I could write the script, I would write it in that way. And I would be in favor of giving Vitor a new contract, definitely.
Yep. I would be as well. Let's wrap with the question that we got in the chat here on the live stream from Joey. who says everyone expects Cunha to leave this summer, me included, but what if he stays? All right, Danny, exercise your imagination here. A scenario I haven't really stopped to think about since things panned out over the last few weeks that they have.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's we've always taken the stance that the release clause is low enough that someone is going to come in for him, and there will be a team that he wants to go to. I've voiced my concerns about his attitude and whether that messes up a move to his desired destination. But like I said, I think it's a bargain for a player with his ability. And so I think some team will think that they can work things out with him. And even just today, I mean, it should be said that, a couple different sources were saying that United were close to triggering the thing. And obviously, this is all still weeks away from even being relevant, but the point is that there is going to be interest there. So that's the backstory on why we think it's, a foregone conclusion that he's going to leave. But I think that, first of all, there is a world where, that's just agent talk and all the team, there's a lot of buzz, but then nothing comes through. And eventually you just have to say, well, do I want to leave to somewhere I don't want to be, or do I want to stay and still be in the Premier League? And he could stay, I guess. I don't find it likely, just like Joey said in his question. But I think I would be very concerned about him staying generally, just because I think it's not a healthy situation to have a player who's known to want away so publicly too. It's been very weird the last few months. And I mean, I should say that it's a very online thing, for people to notice. Like, I think there are lots of people who don't notice all this paper talk. But I will say the one thing that gives me hope is that, probably what's impressed me the most about Vitor over his time is handling these kinds of situations. And even just a few weeks ago when, he'd kicked off at the cup game and we were, screaming bloody murder about, how this was going to affect our season and we might go down because of this and whatever. It's not so much that Vitor, figured out how to get us points, which is also super important. But he also, managed to keep the team together. And maybe that's also down to Nelson Semedo as captain or other characters. But Vitor Pereira is the one where the buck stops. And, he's handled it before. And I guess I have hope that he would handle it again if Cunha decides to stay. And I also trust that Cunha is enough of a smart politician that, if he's going to stay, he's going to try to make nice with everyone. So I think it's like not a total disaster if he stays. It's like the bigger problem is not getting the money that we would get. Honestly, like that would be my bigger concern is like, where do Fosun, find incomings if they're not going to put up their own money without the Cunha money. So, yeah.
What if it was a quiet summer? They didn't need a lot of incoming money because they weren't going to spend, but he stays. Then I think I would answer the question in 2 words: Champions League. No, I don't know. It's hard to even go there, honestly. But who knows? Crazier things have happened. It would be a pretty unique remontada. All right, that's gonna wrap up. No stupid questions for us. Thanks to our friends at Esfuerzo Wines for bringing no stupid questions to the people each and every week. And thanks to all who chimed in through all of our social channels and even here on the live stream with your questions. We love when you do. Keep them coming. We've got a few earmarked for off-season editions that were very transfer heavy. So keep them coming. If we don't do them on the show in which you submit it, we certainly will we'll circle back to a lot of those, as we'll have plenty to talk about over the course of the summer, seeing how this all pans out. EsfuerzoWines.com, promo code VITOR at checkout.
Kurt, as we are about to wrap, do let the listeners and the streamers know how they can connect with you, and importantly, if they're in and around the Atlanta area, how you can meet up, host watch parties and the like.
Sounds good. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at OriginalBip. I try to make out to Fido's in Buckhead here in Atlanta to watch matches. And I'm also at Brewhouse from time to time watching there. So let me know if you're down.
When it comes to watching matches, if you are one of our UK-based listeners who attend the games, then do be on the lookout for our very own Josh Buckley from Friday in Wolverhampton. He's going to be in and around the area. If you are on the socials, he'll have the hashtag WLWpod in WV1. So if you want to track him down, he's got some giveaways. So we encourage you to connect. And in the meantime, we extend our thanks to Alex on the socials and Danny producing, our listeners, our streamers, because if it wasn't for you, there would be no whole lot of Wolves. So continue to do what you do each and every week. If that prompts you to give us a review, please do so on that podcast platform of choice. Or if you are new to our YouTube channel, please head over there, like, subscribe, give us all the feels on YouTube, because that helps us wonderfully for our exposure. We will be back a little later next week to hear directly from Josh about everything that goes down on his trip and the game at Leicester. So if you are going to the game on Saturday, look out for the Texan in the cowboy hat and tell him, up the mighty Wolves.